Hello, everyone, and welcome to Free Game.
Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate the panel for investing their time in this series and just being committed to help the community around us build themselves up to make us all stronger.
As always, you could have chosen to be anywhere else, so we are very grateful that you chose to be here with us. So I will turn it over to James so he can get us started with the panelists.
At that point, your rights are being violated and it's an illegal search from the point when you actually step out the car because of his aggression. True or not?
So let me say this, every situation is different, but I'll run with this hypothetical that you've just given me, okay? Yep. If an officer walks up to the car, gun drawn, make sure your camera's on. Don't have it in your hand because it could be mistaken as a weapon. Yep. Put it down somewhere just to capture what's going on. Yep. But if the officer walks up to your car, gun drawn, and wants you to get out and says, get out of the car, at that point, you are no longer free to go. As soon as an officer puts you in a position where you're no longer free to go, that is called a stop. That is called a stop. And then if they're kind of like saying, get out of the car, put your hands behind your back, at that point, that is a seizure. That is a seizure under the law. And if they didn't have probable cause to stop you or to seize you, your person, you as a person, arrest you, put you in handcuffs, whatever. If they didn't have probable cause to do that, then yes, that is a Fourth Amendment violation. And let me say this. The thing I love the most about social media is that folks have access to seeing the things that I've been working on since I was 16 years old. Right? So folks are like, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe, they shot that man. I can't believe they put they knee in that man's neck like that. I can't believe they did X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, this is what the system was designed to do. They've been doing this forever.
Yeah, right? Social media is just showing it now.
And I love that.
It's just live for the world. It's live for the world to see now. What does an advocate mean in our business? And specifically for a Black woman in our business, right? With and I'll go even a step further, a Black woman in design in our business.
Yeah, so there's advocates and mentors. I think they're very different. Your mentor is a person who you feel like you can talk to. You probably engage with this person, a few times a month. They're maybe closer in age or closer in trajectory or path or roles. And they can be also a little bit older, but you can have more of a free-flowing conversation with them. You can really trust them. You feel confident that you can be open with them and it's not going to be held against you. I think an advocate is someone different. An advocate is maybe a little bit further from you. You touch in with them maybe once a quarter, but they sit in the rooms that you'll never have access to. Right. They know your story. They know your path. You present what you've done to them, and they're your sounding board in those rooms that you're never going to get into. They may also be in rooms that your mentor isn't in as well. So it's very important to have those people on your side who are going to advocate for you.
And so for me, it's always been about what is the previous experiences that we've had? What are the stories that we know, the narratives that we want to tell in order to be able to bring something to life? Because we've all seen something come to market that had no soul to it. We've all seen it, and you all know what it looks like.
But it's cliche to say be yourself, but be you. Like, be yourself. You love sneakers? Cool, bet. Do everything you would normally do, right? And that resonates and it shows, and it I know, at least for us, like it allows us to see a part of your personality and who you are.
These brands as a whole have to support women's concepts financially in the way that they do on the men's side, the performance side, anything. They have to really, really back it up with money. If you say that women's is your focus, then support that notion.
You got to create a safe, authentic place for women to want to come in and participate, for y'all to actually be interested.
Right, and you just said a very, very key word, which is authentic. If you fake it and you try to sell people on some stuff that they don't really believe in, or look to people that they're not part of their reality or that they relate to, that's where brands, I feel like, in my opinion, probably fall short. Is because, and again, it's because, people are trying to get really quick to get to the good part. But again, like when you're looking at some of these brands that have been in fruition for like 30 plus years, the women's business and the side of that business is not ready to be there overnight. So with patience, love, and most importantly, financial backing, it will get there. It will get there. It just needs to take time, because clearly through this conversation, the opportunity is, and the appetite is there. It is super there, but you just gotta, put the magic ingredients in and just be patient, and we'll get there.
It can happen. And the conviction that you have in your voice and the talent that you have, right? And yo, I've seen what happens down there. It's you, bro. Like, it's corny as hell when people say like, oh, we are the change. Motherfuckers, we are the change. Like, no bullshit. Like, it's really us. It's really like, we are the change we've been waiting for. That shit sounds cliche as shit until it's time to go to work. If I didn't believe my own insanity, I'd still be in the projects, right? So you gotta dare yourself to be crazy and get with other youngins who wanna be crazy with you, and call some other guys that got some gray on their face who are already crazy, and let them be crazy with y'all and get to it.
Early days, he couldn't get funding from banks because of the nature of the business and whatever, even though he's a grower, legit, everything above board. And so the private equity boys came in, big business came in and offered him to a large 7-figure investment for equity. And he gave them close to 40% of equity in the company. Fast forward today, the business is worth north of 100 million. They own over 40% of it for what they put in at the time, which was, I think, ballpark 2 million. Now they own over 40 million. He has to buy them out because they own a significant piece. They get a say in everything he's doing. They've over-corporatized it, limited his expansion, et cetera. If he had been able to go borrow money, right, take on debt, take a loan from a butter for that same 2 million, and have a note that he paid over 30 something years, he still would own 100% of his company. So he still would own close to 100 million, and he would be paying whatever his monthly or whatever the fixed payment plus interest is on that. So the fundamental difference for many of you who are startups is, equity, you're taking money to give somebody ownership of your idea, your baby, your intellectual property, and that ownership grows as you grow. Yes, you don't have to pay them back a payment and have to pay, interest on the loan, or the ability to go take a fixed chunk of money with a fixed interest rate and have all the obligations that go with paying the loan down, similar to any payment you would have.
I think what everybody's saying is true. There has to be a modified version of a business plan, and in today's environment, that's just called a deck, right? So you gotta be doing, you gotta have a deck, and you gotta know how to pitch the shit out of it. If you can't pitch what you're doing, if your elevator ain't on point and makes somebody want to keep hearing, then keep doing until you can define your deck and define your elevator, right? And then that gets you there, right? Because there's tons of people out there talking about their idea and their valuation, their idea. I got this great idea and I'm raising money for it. Every time somebody starts a conversation with that and they can't show me another business that they made a lot of money on, man, I give them that face like, oh yeah, oh, that's dope. When you get that, oh yeah, you get that 3 times, nobody's really listening.
I'll start this one. When building your brand, when you get to that certain spot where you can't do it all by yourself, how do you help bring people into the fold? And like, how do you discern like, okay, this is the right person to bring into the brand, and this is not the right person to bring to the brand?
So team. So what you're saying is, let me back. At what point do you know it has to be bigger than you and it's time to get a team?
Yes. When
you can't sleep. For me, and when I say can't sleep, I don't mean can't sleep at night. I mean there ain't enough hours in a day. Like I worked our business. I probably worked every gray hair on my face, if that makes sense. But you have to start saying to yourself, like, if you're gonna grow, you need a team that's invested in your vision. So the first thing I think everybody on this call, TJ, everybody who spoke said one thing. You gotta understand your mission. You gotta understand your mission, your vision. What's your unique consumer proposition? What does the consumer expect from you? What do you expect from consumer? What do you expect from the consumer? What are you giving back to the world, right? Once you can clearly articulate those things, then you could bring someone on your team to help give them a shot, right?
Right.
And honestly, you don't know, bro. I suck at hiring people. You know the best thing, the best thing that goes with hiring people is letting their asses go, right? Because when you make a mistake, you gotta, and it's early, you gotta know, because you only get one reputation. So you can't allow, and when it's you and the other person, that person can burn down what you built as fast as you built it, right? So you got to make sure they're doing a great job being a brand ambassador, because if they burn it faster than you can build it, you're dead.
It's like we talk about how do we make space for us as Black people to succeed. I think within this industry, making space for Black women to succeed is like a whole other hurdle, Black and brown women. And so shouts out to you for doing what you do and advocating and amplifying those voices. Listen, the first thing, just tactically, right, is you want to make sure that you're legally protected. So make sure that what you own, which is difficult when it's an idea versus something that's truly noted intellectual property, but still know what is yours so that you do have some legal protection. Now, you're not going to go up against a $50 billion brand with all internal legal team and all that kind of stuff, but just the ability to say, like I have put in writing, that this is my concept, my idea. Sometimes it's just the threat of bad press that can help pull something back. So make sure you note what is yours. And I like to put things in writing and make sure you know your legal rights. The other thing though, is if you go back again to what do you distinctly add, it's not, and you got on this, it's not just the idea, it is truly the execution. So some of those things you just have to let roll off your shoulder. You're gonna have sometimes where people steal your ideas, right? Yep. But what they're not going to steal is who you are and what your business is, and what you are is not just a set of ideas. It's how you execute. It's the relationships you have. It's what you bring to the table. And so you have to choose your battles, right? Sometimes you want to go to war and say, look, that's mine and I'm going to fight for it. Sometimes you look at it as like a boost up. Like my idea was so good, they executed it poorly, but my idea was so good that X person or company entity stole it. Let me use that, like, Dwayne and James were saying, is jet fuel, right? That just gives me a bit more confidence, a bit more of a boost to go on to the next thing and win it. So I would say, on the one hand, protect yourself, be ready to fight when you need to fight, but also just recognize you're not going to want to fight every time. And just take that as a confidence boost.
Yeah, I would say, just to complement the dialogue right now, my real truth, if I'm being really candid and vulnerable here, would be that for the first 16 years of my career, I showed up in every room not feeling like enough. And thus I chose to assimilate in order to feel like this is how I'm going to close this deal. This is how I'm going to get the CMO to purchase my network. This is how I'm going to make this happen. And more importantly, I will not be disruptive, which sadly is just the bullshit that I believed. And it wasn't until 2016 when I moved over to OWN and the CEO was a Black woman. And I sat in the boardroom and saw this Black woman tell everyone what she wanted to see and do on her network. And then I found myself looking at Queen Sugar and Greenleaf and all these other rich stories going, wow, these stories really reflect more of Black life in a way that I know, but I see myself reflected. So now I'm a part of the product, because before I was peddling shows and narratives that were not for me, not created for me. And the ones that I was asked to pitch towards the end, and part of the reason I was eager to leave Viacom at the time was because they were putting out shows that I think contributed to the narratives and stereotypes that we're up against. So to finally come in a room and say, I represent this network because this network represents me. It's like I came out, and everyone always says to me, well, what did you come out as? And I was like, a Black woman at work, finally free to step in my full authentic self, fully expressed, and bring in my nuance, bring in my specificity, and unapologetic about it, and closing more deals probably in the last 4 years than I have in the 16 before, because I believe in myself. I know I'm enough.
The minute you start to look at yourself in the room and start to compare yourself to, like, I'm the only Black person in this room, I'm the only woman in this room, you got to turn it to the other way around of, like, that is your superpower, right? That is your strength. And you use every piece of it. So, I think use that as ammunition more than anything else. Because the minute you start to stop and think about it, that's when you start to question yourself. That's when you start to get nervous. That's when you start to not be as confident and maybe not make decisions that you normally would make if you did have that confidence factor. So I think
also when you shrink yourself too, right, Carrie,
Yeah.
to build on that, because if you go in feeling like the space wasn't built for you, you're not going to take up space in
That's
that
it.
in that room. So I'm with Carrie too, championing like never thinking about glass ceilings, walls, barriers. You do that, you don't stretch into the full potential of the space that you can take up in. So I'm with Sally and with Carrie. Believe in yourself and don't put any boundary society's put on you or that you have within your own mind to shrink. And that's the minute when you lose the fullness of unleashing your superpowers, the moment you shrink.
We're going to go ahead and respect everybody's time then, and we are going to call it, and we're going to say thank you again to everyone who popped on. Love yourselves. Be good to each other. God bless you. Good night.